Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you manage people, or you lead a team, or maybe you're just trying to navigate this current labor market, you definitely know retention is, well, it's the new
It,
scarcity.
it really is. We looked into quite a bit of material on
We
this.
did. And the challenge for HR professionals, it's intense right now.
Absolutely. I mean, the research highlights just how tight things are. In some key U.S. regions, get this, there are almost twice as many job openings as people actually looking for work.
Wow. Twice as many.
Yeah, it creates this incredibly fierce competition for talent. So, once you actually hire someone, keeping them has to be the absolute top priority for the organization.
Exactly. And what's so interesting about all this churn, this great resignation fallout, is how it's kind of split into two really distinct but related challenges.
Mm.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going deep on these two, let's call them disruptive workplace trends: quiet quitting and loud quitting. We want to understand, what's the shared root cause, this employee frustration, and critically, figure out the concrete steps organizations like yours can take right now to actually improve culture and hang on to your people.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this because you hear quiet quitting and loud quitting, and they sound like total opposites.
Right. Polar opposites.
But psychologically, they're really cut from the same cloth. They're both, at their core, expressions of frustration.
Yeah, the materials we looked at are really clear on this. In both situations, you've basically got an employee who feels, well, some mix of underappreciated, maybe taken advantage of, or just
Mhm.
stuck, unable to use their talents in a way that feels meaningful to them.
And importantly, both of these behaviors are kind of a backlash, a reaction against this pervasive hustle culture.
Oh, definitely. That expectation of being always on, always available.
Yeah, always going above and beyond what the job description actually says. It's created this real fatigue. And these trends, they're basically employees drawing a line in the sand, saying, look, I'm not going to burn myself out for this place.
But how they draw that line is so different. Quiet quitting, that's the one that really kicked off the whole debate, wasn't it?
It was quiet quitting, and some studies call it soft quitting
Just
too.
quitting, right?
It's this passive withdrawal. So the employee, they're physically there, right? They show up, do the basic tasks
But they're emotionally checked out.
completely. They disengage, they put in just the minimum effort required, and it's this sort of non-confrontational, maybe even passive-aggressive way to show they're unhappy.
So they're quitting the culture or the extra effort,
Uh-huh.
but keeping the job and the paycheck.
Exactly. Then you have loud quitting, which is, well, it's much harder to miss.
Definitely more dramatic. It's that sort of demonstrative exit or sometimes just a very public airing of grievances.
Right. This is where the frustrated employee really vents, and it could be directly to management, you know, in tense meetings.
Or increasingly online, social media.
Yes. We see examples like employees publicly slamming company policies or these really dramatic resignation posts or, detailing every workplace complaint online for everyone to see.
What I found really interesting, though, was that loud quitting isn't always the end of the road. It's not always "I quit."
No, that's a crucial point from the research. Sometimes this really public dramatic venting is actually, believe it or not, a kind of high-stakes negotiation strategy.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. When an employee makes a huge fuss, maybe about the work environment, pay, leadership ethics, whatever, they might be using that volume as leverage.
Oh, okay.
It's like the ultimate you need to listen to me move, designed to force a conversation, maybe demand a specific change, rather than just walking away quietly.
So it's a power play. It's saying, I'm valuable enough that I can shout about how unhappy I am, and I expect you to fix it.
Pretty much. But look, whether the employee is quietly shrinking their contribution or, publicly protesting, the core reason is the same. It's deep employee disengagement, and it's fueled by frustration.
And if you synthesize all the research we looked at, that root cause really seems to boil down to one critical thing, doesn't it?
It does. It's this trigger.
Yeah.
Employee frustration comes from reality not lining up with expectations.
That expectation gap. That's the whole game, isn't it?
It really is.
It's not always that the job itself is terrible, but it's not what they thought they signed up for, or it's not where they expected to be in their career by now. And that mismatch, that's the signal for employees to start checking out.
So if we want to prevent this frustration, if we want to avoid quiet or loud quitting, we have to be proactive. We need to stack the odds, so to speak, in favor of aligning that reality with the expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And the sources suggest breaking this down into three core pillars, three areas organizations really need to address.
Right. And pillar number one is expectations. This starts right at the beginning, often what the research calls the hiring trap.
The hiring trap. Yeah, this is where the misalignment often kicks off. You see, this intense labor shortage puts huge pressure on HR and hiring managers to just fill seats quickly.
Get bodies in chairs.
Exactly. And that pressure can lead to, well, overselling the position, painting an unrealistically rosy picture.
Especially around things like work-life balance or how quickly someone can climb the ladder.
Precisely. Then, 6 months down the line, the reality of the daily grind hits, and it just doesn't match that initial, perhaps inflated expectation. Frustration is almost guaranteed.
Which leads to this really costly trade-off, right? We saw that tough question posed to HR leaders in the materials.
Yeah, the trade-off between speed and retention.
Is it better to take longer, maybe weeks longer, to find the right person who's likely to stay? Or fill the role super fast, only to have to go through the whole expensive recruitment song and dance again a few months later?
And economically, the answer is pretty clear. Taking the time usually pays off in the long run. Better retention saves money and maintains stability.
So how do you avoid that hiring trap then, if you need people now?
Well, the key preventative strategy suggested is a shift in focus during hiring, placing a much greater emphasis on soft skills.
Soft skills, like adaptability,
Mhm.
communication, learning ability.
Exactly. That capacity to learn, to adapt, to fit into the company culture, prioritizing those over just a checklist of technical skills on a resume.
That actually makes a lot of sense, especially for retention. If you hire purely for technical skills someone already has.
They might master the current tasks quickly.
And then what? They get bored, they feel stagnant. The frustration kicks in because their expectation of growth isn't being met.
Precisely. But if you prioritize soft skills, you're signaling something different. You're telling the employee, we're investing in your development and your potential, not just what you can do for us today.
And that investment helps manage that expectation gap over time.
Yeah.
It speaks directly to what younger generations, especially Gen Z, are looking for, right? They really prioritize that professional development.
They absolutely do, which leads us perfectly into the next pillar, because even if you set expectations well initially, what happens later?
Right. What happens 6 months, a year in? Which brings us to pillar two, stagnation.
Yes, the sources are pretty direct here. Quiet quitting is often just apathy, and apathy is the natural consequence of stagnation.
The growth vacuum, they called it.
The growth vacuum. If an employee feels unchallenged, if they aren't learning new things, if they don't see a path forward, they quickly lose any reason to engage beyond the absolute basics.
So the fix isn't just about the initial hire. It's about designing the role for growth from the outset.
Exactly. The solution proposed is proactive design. Your job descriptions shouldn't just list today's tasks. They need to anticipate and, ideally, define clear growth paths.
Like, what new skills will this role need in a year? What projects could this person grow into?
Yes, it shifts the whole frame. You're not just hiring someone to, say, process invoices. You're hiring a future team lead or someone who will eventually manage a key project. You're hiring for potential.
Because stagnation breeds complacency.
And complacency is the fast track to apathy and disengagement.
Okay, so we've got expectations managed at the start, and we're actively fighting stagnation with growth paths. But what if frustration still builds up? People need to be able to talk about it, right?
It's absolutely,
No.
which is pillar 3, communication. Employees simply have to have a clear and, importantly, a comfortable channel to voice concerns, ask for help, give feedback.
If they don't have that.
Frustration becomes almost inevitable. And think about loud quitting, that public venting we talked about.
Yeah.
That's often a massive red flag. It signals the employee felt their issues couldn't or wouldn't be heard or addressed through any internal channels. They felt silenced.
So they had to take it outside the company walls to feel heard.
Exactly. But the research also makes a really critical point about the quiet quitters. For people who are maybe more timid or non-confrontational, the ones likely to quietly disengage rather than shout, just having an open door policy isn't enough.
Right. You can't just wait for them to walk through that open door. Many won't.
Precisely. Management has to be proactive here. It means actively soliciting feedback. Regular check-ins are crucial.
Not just how's it going, but really asking.
Asking for suggestions. How can we improve things? What challenges are you facing? Creating a genuine sense of psychological safety where people feel okay speaking up without fearing negative consequences.
That's the difference, isn't it? Between just having a channel theoretically open and actively ensuring every single employee feels seen and heard.
It is. And it addresses a key question, especially now with so much remote and hybrid work.
How do you know the right way to communicate with each person?
Yeah, because what works for one might not work for another. The research is clear. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
So managers need to talk to their.
Fundamentally, yes. Talk to them. Find out how they prefer to communicate concerns. Is it asynchronous chat, short weekly video calls, a more formal mentoring setup?
Yeah.
Leadership needs to figure out what works best for each individual and make sure those channels are actually used and feel responsive.
Okay, so expectations, stagnation, communication. If companies get those pillars right, they're in a much better position.
Much better. But if they fail on one or more, well, they really shouldn't be surprised when they start losing talent, either quietly or loudly.
And for leaders listening, perhaps worried about their own teams, there are specific warning signs, aren't there? Telltale signs that an employee might already be disengaging.
Yes, the data points to 4 key indicators that someone might be on that path towards quitting in one form or another. And the first couple are fairly straightforward.
Go on. Number 1?
The obvious one, a noticeable decrease in productivity, a sustained drop in their output. It's not just about lack of motivation, though that's often part of it, but lower output itself can decrease job satisfaction, creating a downward spiral.
Okay, lower productivity. Makes sense. Number 2.
This one is about physical withdrawal, an increase in absences or lateness. Coming in late, leaving early, taking more sick days than usual. It's often described as a classic dead giveaway.
If they're physically distancing themselves.
They're likely already mentally distancing themselves too.
Okay, those seem fairly easy to spot. But the third sign you mentioned, that one requires a bit more interpretation, doesn't it?
It does. Sign number 3 is an unwillingness to accept praise or criticism.
Tell me more about that. Why is that a sign?
Because it reflects a kind of refusal of ownership. The employee is trying to distance themselves psychologically from their work product.
How so?
Well, they feel the work doesn't really represent what they're capable of or what they should be doing. So if you try to praise them for something...
They brush it off, like, oh, it was nothing, or anyone could have done it.
Exactly. Because maybe they feel the jobs is beneath them, or the project they're being praised for was actually kind of mediocre in their eyes.
Yeah.
And if you try to offer constructive criticism...
They get defensive. Or they just don't seem to take it on board.
Right. They might deflect, blaming external factors, or they just seem indifferent because, in their mind, the fault lies with the role or the lack of support or the company, not their own ability or effort. They've mentally checked out of owning the outcome.
Wow. So they've already started separating themselves from the work itself. The output isn't theirs anymore in their head.
That's a good way to put it. And the final sign, number 4, is related. It's an overall sense of negativity.
Okay, but everyone complains sometimes.
Oh, of course. But this is when an employee's criticism about their own work, their colleagues, the company, whatever, stops being constructive. It's no longer about suggesting improvements. It just becomes their general outlook. Everything is wrong. Nothing is good enough.
And that negativity can be corrosive.
Very. And it requires good leadership here. You can't just dismiss the person as being negative. You need to try and sift through that negativity to find the potential root cause. Is there a valid complaint hidden under all that pessimism?
Right. It might still point back to issues with expectations, stagnation, or communication.
Often it does.
So this whole deep dive, it really hammers home one point for me. Preventing both quiet and loud quitting isn't about quick fixes or perks. It's fundamentally about improving the core organizational culture.
I completely agree. If we synthesize those 3 preventative pillars we talked about, they really form the bedrock of a healthy, retention-focused culture.
Let's recap them quickly. 1, setting clear, honest expectations right from the hiring process. No overselling.
2, actively fostering growth and long-term development for everyone, making sure people don't stagnate.
And 3, implementing communication strategies that are tailored to the individual, ensuring every single employee genuinely feels valued and, crucially, heard.
Get those right. Improve that foundational culture. And you will improve employee retention. It really feels like the only sustainable way to navigate this tight labor market. And if we just, take a step back and connect this to the bigger picture, this whole conversation really pushes against some traditional HR practices, doesn't it?
Maybe.
Well, the research consistently warns against overselling jobs, and it strongly advocates focusing on soft skills and long-term development potential over just immediate technical qualifications.
Right.
So it begs an important question, I think, for you, the listener. If that focus on soft skills and development is the key to preventing people from quitting, does that mean the traditional HR obsession with perfectly matching immediate technical skills is maybe fundamentally misaligned with retention goals today?
Hmm, that's a provocative thought.
Hmm.
Is the way we've always hired actually contributing to the problem?
It could be. So the question to ponder is, what immediate changes could you advocate for in your own organization's hiring pitch? How could you shift the focus towards growth potential, toward honest work expectations, rather than just ticking off technical skill boxes?
Definitely something to think about. How to build that honesty and focus on growth right from day one. Something for you all to mull over this week.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next deep dive.